Good evening and welcome to the national news broadcast on ChannelEye. We are ready to bring you the top stories from home and around the world. I'm Natalia Virvardhana.
And I am Tilina Udayaratna. Coming up are your top stories for tonight.
3 more Omicron cases detected from the country. Prime Minister emphasizes the era of those who are living in the country without a shelter will end. Litrogas Lanka Limited gives an undertaking to the court, claiming only Consumer Affairs Authority and Sri Lanka Standards Institute approved domestic gas cylinders will be distributed to the market.
On your top local story this evening, the Director of Allergy, Immunology and Cell Biology Institute at the Sri Jayawardhanapura University, Dr. Chandima Jeevandara, says 3 more people with the Omicron variant have been detected in the country today. Accordingly, the number of Omicron patients in the country has risen to 4 at present. In a tweet, Dr. Chandima Jeevandara has indicated that the number of persons contracted with the Omicron variant continues to increase in the country. Therefore, he has requested the public to receive the booster shot urgently. The Director General of Health Services has issued a new set of guidelines that are effective from today until the 31st of December. Accordingly, a maximum of 50% of the capacity at halls is allowed for weddings. A total of 30 persons are allowed to be present at funeral ceremonies in any given time. Legal action will be taken against institutions and persons failing to adhere to these guidelines. A new set of guidelines will be reissued for the new year after reviewing the prevailing situation by the 31st of December. More information in this regard can be obtained from our website www.runews.lk. The inoculation of the booster shot is underway successfully in the country. An inoculation program was conducted at the Piliyandala MOH office. Another booster vaccine inoculation program was conducted at the Viharamadevi Park in Colombo today. Meanwhile, 1,200 estate workers in Talavakale received the booster shot at the Dharmalingam Cultural Centre today. A total of 31,634,248 vaccine doses have been inoculated to the people in the country under the COVID-19 immunization program. 15,962,904 persons have received the first dose of the vaccine, while 13,801,586 have received both the doses. A total of 1,869,758 have received the booster shot as well. Meanwhile, 518 COVID-19 infected persons were detected in the country today. The number of active cases in the country stands at 16,288. A total of 359 recoveries were reported today, increasing the overall tally to 546,498. The Director General of Health Services confirmed 21 COVID-19 related deaths which had occurred yesterday.
And meanwhile, Director General of Health Services Dr. Hemantha Herath urged the public to be more responsible in their behaviour to avoid another COVID-19 outbreak in the country. He said that people should be more cautious in their activities during this festive season. He made these remarks while speaking to media today.
Complaints are coming from various quarters about non-adherence of health guidelines, especially in events organized in relation to the festive season in various parts of the island, where the several events to commemorate or parallel to the festive season has been organized without or with full disregard in the health guidelines, which is totally unacceptable. We know that most of the clusters created in the past have been associated with certain type of gatherings related to weddings, funeral houses and other gathering of people in relation to several kind of entertainment events and also the parties and related social gatherings. So therefore, I would like to emphasize that it is virtually impossible to control these activities or to ensure that these activities are carried out according to the health guidelines. It is the responsibility of the owners of the venues of these parties, events and other festivals. All these events should be carried out according to the stipulated health guidelines. And the organizers of these events also should take the responsibility to ensure that the events are organized according to the stipulated health guidelines. The participants who are taking part in these events also should take their responsibility into their hands and make sure that all these events are conducted according to the health guideline, and thereby ensure your personal safety and make sure that you are not going to create a cluster of patients as a result of irresponsible behavior.
The United Nations Assistant Secretary General Khani Vignaraja called on Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa at the Temple Trees last evening. The attention was directed on a range of issues, including the COVID immunization program currently underway in the country. The UN Assistant Secretary General praised the country's vaccination program. She said that many countries which have commenced the vaccination of the booster shots have seen a growth in tourist arrivals. The Prime Minister said that the tourism industry in the country is picking up gradually. It was noted that the global tourism sector has been severely affected due to the COVID pandemic. Discussing on the post-COVID-19 economic recovery, UN Assistant Secretary General Vignaraja said that the United Nations possesses many avenues and methodologies to support Sri Lanka. Reiterating that Sri Lanka will always work closely with the United Nations, the Prime Minister emphasized on the continuous cooperation in future. It was emphasized on the need to create job opportunities for the youth, particularly in private sector, and the need to encourage the youth in private sector employments. UN Assistant Secretary General Khani Vignaraja is also the United Nations Development Programme Assistant Administrator and Director of the UNDP Regional Bureau for Asia and Pacific. She also briefed on the support extended on the areas related to climate change and sustainable development in Sri Lanka. One of the main projects assisted by the United Nations Development Programme is the Climate Resilient Integrated Water Management Project. This initiative is underway with the aim to strengthen the resilience of the smallholder farmers in the country's dry zone to climate variability and extreme event. 73% of the total expenditure of the project is financed through grant assistance received from Green Climate Fund. Resident representative of the United Nations Development Programme in Sri Lanka, Rajapaksa, informed the Prime Minister of the measures undertaken to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals in the close cooperation with the Sustainable Development Council of Sri Lanka.
Litro Gas Lanka Limited has given an undertaking to the Court of Appeals, citing that only the Consumer Affairs Authority and the Sri Lanka Standards Institute approved domestic gas will be distributed to the market. The relevant company made these undertakings before the court when a petition was filed by a civil society activist requesting to issue an order to conduct an inquiry over the incidents occurred due to alleged gas leakages from gas cylinders was taken up for hearing today. The petition was convened before a panel of Court of Appeal judges Ruan Fernando and Sampath Vijayaratnam. Complying to a notice issued by the Court of Appeal yesterday, the council representing Litro Gas Company submitted 2 undertakings on behalf of the company. Accordingly, attorney Amarasekara informed the court that the company will only distribute domestic gas which complied with the standards approved by the Consumer Affairs Authority and the Sri Lanka Standards Institute. The attorney also informed that the company has agreed to display a sticker on the domestic gas cylinders indicating the composition of the content. More than 90% of domestic gas-related incidents reported in the past few days have occurred as a result of substandard stoves and appliances. Senior State Counsel Manohara Jayasinghe, representing the Consumer Affairs Authority and the Sri Lanka Standards Institute, informed the court that a special meeting has been scheduled by the Sri Lanka Standards Institute on the 20th of December to reach a decision on the composition of the domestic gas cylinder. He further said that an accelerated decision will be taken over the composition and the standards of a domestic gas cylinder at the meeting. The Court of Appeal informed that the relevant verdicts on the submissions made today will be delivered tomorrow.
A large cache of live ammunition used for T-56 and other firearms has been recovered from a land in Kilinochchi Police Division. It has been alleged that these live ammunitions may have been used during the war period. 2 boxes of live ammunition used for T-56 firearms suspected to be used in the war period were discovered from a concrete workshop site in Ramya Road in Kilinochchi Police Division. After presenting submissions to the Kilinochchi magistrate on 14th, the officers of the Kilinochchi Araviyanagar Special Task Force conducted further excavations at the site. During the excavations, the Special Task Force officers were able to unearth 84 boxes, each containing 750 rounds of ammunition used for T-56 firearms, 46,000 rounds for T-56 bullets removed from the shells, 800 bullets used for M60 firearms, and 400 rounds of MPMG ammunition. Further excavations are underway. Meanwhile, a live grenade and a cache of live ammunition were taken into custody during another raid carried out in Tembuena Police Division in Kalutara by the Horana Special Task Force officers. During the raid, a person at the age of 42 was apprehended with a pen pistol and another part of a pistol along with 483 live ammunitions.
Project Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa says the era of those who are living in the motherland without a shelter will end in the next couple of years. The Prime Minister made these remarks while taking part in the ceremony held yesterday to declare open the Kolomtota Sarasavi Uyana, a 528-unit housing complex built for low-income earners. The new housing complex has been built down Kalingamawatha Polhengoda, Colombo 5. Steps were taken at the beginning of the project to provide housing units from the complex for the families in Columbage Mawatha who were deprived of houses. Each housing unit consists of 2 bedrooms and other necessary facilities. The 528-unit housing complex was built at a cost of 1,900 million rupees. The constructions were carried out by Maga Engineering Private Limited under the supervision of the State Engineering Corporation. The building allocated for the student hostel for the University of Colombo was officially handed over during the ceremony. Chancellor of the Colombo University, Venerable Muruttettuwe Ananda Thera, Ministers Dinesh Gunawardena and Pavitra Vanyarachi, State Ministers Nalaka Godaheva and Susil Premajayant, and Parliamentarians Jagat Kumara and Yadamini Gunawardena were present at this occasion. Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa said that the effort of the government is to provide the true right of the motherland for those who are deprived of houses. Either racial, religious discrimination or party politics will not be entertained during these housing projects. These housing projects are underway in accordance with a greater policy and a future vision. Some governments had spent more on propaganda than on the housing projects. He further added that during the Yahapalane government's period, the propaganda expenses of the housing projects were in millions of rupees, which could have been utilized to build more housing complexes. These housing projects are people-centric projects. Therefore, a suitable environment should be created for those who live in these housing units as families. Under the Vistas of Prosperity policy statement, the government aims to provide a comfortable housing complex for each family. Housing units will be provided for the urban, rural estate and the displaced under this initiative. 50,000 housing units will be completed in 2024 for the communities with urbanized settlements with substandard facilities. 14,083 housing units have been handed over under this initiative. The Premier said that the necessary planning to transform settlements with less facilities in Colombo into modern housing complexes will take place by 2024. The initial efforts in this regard were taken in 2010. By 2014, they were able to provide many shanty dwellers with housing complexes. He also said that they were able to lift the image of the city of Colombo by reconstructing buildings of historical value and heritage. Accordingly, these efforts made Sri Lanka into a fastest growing country in the world by 2015. However, the Prime Minister said that all these efforts were destroyed by the Yahapalane government.
A decision has been reached to set up a task force to study and report on the adverse effects of the use of chemical fertilizers on the human body. Minister Dr. Rajapaksa instructed the Director General of Health Services yesterday to take necessary measures to implement this initiative within the next week. The decision to set up a special task force was reached during a meeting held with the participation of Minister Rajapaksa, Minister Mahindananda Alutgamage and the officials of the relevant ministries. Minister Kelly Rambukwala said that an independent group of officials representing various fields including health sector should be appointed to the task force and a large-scale study should be conducted in this regard. He also said that attention should be directed on the studies conducted on this subject in the next couple of years. Minister Mahindananda Alutgamage said that the support of the Ministries of Health and Environment is essential for the efforts taken by the Ministry of Agriculture to prevent the use of chemical fertilizer. It was revealed during the meeting that the kidney-related diseases have spread up to 16 districts in the country and the number of patients have continued to increase at times since 1994. The majority of the patients are reported from North Central Province, including Anuradhapura. 95% of the total patients are members of families engaged in agriculture. It was revealed during the meeting that 70% of the deaths related to renal diseases were among elderly citizens in the past, but observations have been made that the tendency of related deaths in the age category of 35 to 40 have increased at present. Dr. Anuruddha Padiniya and Chairman of the Green Agriculture Operations Committee, Professor Priyantha Yappa, were also present at the occasion.
The Supreme Court has postponed the hearing of the petition seeking to revoke the decision taken by the Cabinet of Ministers to transfer 40% of the government shares in the Yugadanavi power plant owned company to a US-based company until tomorrow. The petitions were called up today before a 5-member judge bench comprising of Chief Justice Jayantha Jayasuriya, Justices Buwanaka Aluvihare, Priyantha Jayawardena, Vijit Malalgoda and LTD Dehideniya. Attorney General Sanjay Rajaratnam representing the respondents of the petitions, the Cabinet of Ministers including Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa raised preliminary objections citing that the petitions should be dismissed without a hearing. The Attorney General pointed out that the petition has been filed exceeding the period allocated through the Construction and Constitution to file a fundamental rights petition is one of the reasons for the objections. The failure to name the members of the Director Board of the new Fortress Energy US company as respondents to this case is another fault. The Attorney General, along with his objections, submitted the communiques and draft agreements to the courts. Considering the objections of the Attorney General, Supreme Court Judge Bench ordered the attorneys representing the petitioners to present their submissions. Accordingly, President's Counsel Manohara De Silva, representing the trade unions of the Ceylon Electricity Board, pointed out that the ambassador of the United States in Sri Lanka has made an immoral mediation for this agreement. The President's Counsel also mentioned that the decision taken by the government to hand over the sole control of LNG in the country to the respondent, the new Fortress Energy US company, through an agreement is against the law. President's Counsel Rumesh De Silva, representing the respondents, rejected the relevant allegations, mentioning that a proper appraisal has been carried out prior to the transferring of these shares. Concluding his presentation of submissions, President's Counsel Manohara De Silva requested the court to issue an order revoking the relevant agreement. Venerable Alle Gunawansa Thera and His Eminence Malcolm Cardinal Ranjith had also filed a petition in this regard, and President's Counsel Salia Pires presented submissions in support. Following his submissions, the hearing of the petition was postponed until tomorrow. Relevant petitions were presented by several entities including Venerable Alle Gunawansa Thera, His Eminence Malcolm Cardinal Ranjith, Parliamentarian Ranjith Madduma Bandara, former Parliamentarian Sunil Handurnetti, Vasantha Samarasinghe and trade unions. The respondents, Ministers Vimala Veerawansa, Vasudeva Nanayakara and Uday Gammanpilla were not represented by the Attorney General during the hearing.
New Japanese ambassador to Colombo, Mizukoshi Hideki, paid a courtesy call on Minister Dallas Salha Peruma at the Ministry of Mass Media today. The minister warmly welcomed the ambassador to the ministry and greeted him for a successful tenure in Colombo. During this discussion, Minister briefed the ambassador of the current status of the digitalization of terrestrial television broadcasting project funded by the JICA. The Japanese ambassador insisted their willingness to support Sri Lanka continuously. The Japanese ambassador was accompanied by Deputy Head of the Mission Katsuki Kotaro. Secretary to the Ministry of Mass Media Jagat Vijayveera was also present at the occasion. Sri Lanka's traditional craft Dumbara weaving, also known as Dumbara Rata, has been declared as a UNESCO World Cultural Heritage. The recognition was declared at the 16th session of the UNESCO Cultural Heritage Committee. The 16th session of the Intergovernmental Committee for the Safeguarding of the Intangible Cultural Heritage, chaired by Sri Lanka, is currently taking place in Paris. The session is headed by Ambassador of Sri Lanka in France, Professor Shanika Himburegama, Secretary General of Sri Lanka National Commission for UNESCO, Dr. Punchinila Memigaswatha. Close to 800 diplomats and representatives from 184 countries are taking part in this session virtually. The inauguration ceremony was held yesterday at the UNESCO head office in Paris. The craftsmen in Alokagama and Shilpi villages in Matale district and Kalasirigama in Kandy district are still continuing the traditional Dumbara weaving craft. The UNESCO has recognized Dumbara Rata weaving crafts as an intangible cultural heritage representing the entire humanity. The international recognition of this traditional art is a great honor for the country. Accordingly, the endangered craft form will now receive a great attention from the society while uplifting the livelihoods of the craftsmen as per the intention of the UNESCO. Ambassador of Sri Lanka to France, Professor Shanika Himburegama, said that measures will be taken to present the proposal to declare the historic Kandy Dalada Perahera as a UNESCO cultural heritage next year to the UNESCO.
The national program to construct 1,500 kilometers of an elephant fence commenced in Ampara today. A total of 1,200 million rupees have been allocated for this project. The inauguration ceremony of the program was held in Navagiriyaya, Ampara today with the participation of State Minister Vimalavira Disanayaka. The elephant fence will function with solar energy. 5,000 multitask employees are expected to be recruited for the maintenance of the fence. The Civil Defence Corps will be assigned for the security of the elephant fence during the night. The 522-kilometer-long fence will be erected in Ampara.
The viewers will now get the opportunity to witness uncharted sites and territories of the Madurai National Park, which has the largest elephant density in the country, on National Television's Vessagiri program. This program will air on 7 p.m. tomorrow. Several pilot projects are underway conserving and managing environmental systems selected through the Environment System Conservation and Management Project, also known as ACECAMP initiative. The program are conducted on the areas of human-elephant coexistence, landscape management, livelihood development and eco-friendly tourism trade. In parallel to this initiative, the development of artificial tanks and pools with the intention to improve the habitats of the animals in national parks are also designed through the program. So far, these programs have been carried out in Yala National Park and Madurai National Park successfully.
The new chairman of the Development Lotteries Board, Ajith Naragala, assumed his duties today. He is the 22nd chairman of the Lotteries Board. He was greeted by ministers, parliamentarians and the senior management of the Development Lotteries Board and was later taken to his office. He assumed duties by signing the letters of the board amidst the chanting of Pirit by the Mahasangha, led by chief incumbent of the Bellangwila Rajamaha Viharaya, Venerable Dr. Bellangwila Dhammaratana Thera. Other religious leaders also extended their blessings during this occasion. He previously served as the Director General of the Sri Lanka Rupavahini Corporation. Chairman Ajith Naragala, who is a graduate from the University of Aesthetic Studies, had also served as a Director of the National Youth Services Council. Ministers Bandula Gunawardana, Gamini Lokuge and Prasanna Ranatunga were present on the occasion. And it's time for some sports. Minister Namal Rajapaksa says that he will not hesitate to penalize sports personnel and administrators who violate discipline. The minister made these remarks while taking part in the ceremony to unveil the official logo of the centenary celebrations of Sri Lanka athletics. The ceremony was held in Colombo today. Many sporting events were organized in celebration of the 100-year anniversary of the Athletics Association. A marathon had been organized on the 22nd of January, and the president of the Sri Lanka Athletics Association, Palitha Fernandes, said that an athletics tournament will be organized in celebration of the centennial celebrations. A ceremony to felicitate athletes who took part in the Asian Youth Para Games 2021 in Bahrain was held in Colombo yesterday with the participation of Minister Namal Rajapaksa. A total of 9 athletes representing Sri Lanka in this year's tournament, and they were able to bring 12 medals to the country, were felicitated. Well, that's all we've got for you this evening on the Rupavahini News Desk for tonight. Join us once again tomorrow. Until then, thanks for watching. Take care. Have a good night.
Good night.